Sa pagkaka-reject ng the Commission of Appointments kay Perfecto Yasay Jr. bilang Foreign Affairs Secretary, pinalitan siya ng isang career diplomat na si Enrique Manalo. Sa kanyang kauna-unahang sit-down TV interview, sinagot ni Acting Foreign Affairs Secretary Manalo ang ilang mahalagang issue kabilang ang pagpasok ng mga barko ng China sa Benham Rice at ang pagtuligsa ng ilang international organization sa umano'y paglabag ng Pilipinas sa mga karapatang pantao. Narito ang aking panayam. Okay, just to get this out of the way, are you a Filipino citizen?
I am. Full-blooded Filipino citizen.
Wala naman questions doon. Kasi alam natin na you grew up the son of diplomats who were based abroad. Did you spend a lot of time overseas?
Yeah, I spent my childhood overseas, but my adolescence and college years were spent here until I joined, of course, the Foreign Service, and I was assigned abroad.
Gusto kong umpisahan dito sa Benham Rice, no? Kasi halos kaupo nyo lang bilang kalihim ay biglang pumutok itong balita na may pumasok na mga barko na galing China sa ating karagatan. Ano ba talaga ho ang nangyari ayon sa inyong impormasyon?
Well, there were reports of may mga vessels that were spotted, but first let me say that clearly, the Benham Rice is within our extended continental shelf, which means we do have the sovereign rights to exploit the resources in Benham Rice. So naturally, it's a very important part. So binabantayan natin yan, that whole area. And what has happened is, yung mga reports na yan, we have in fact alerted China that we have reports of this. And then sinabi namin sa kanila. And in fact, they have, sinabi nila, even in news reports, that they clearly recognize that the Philippines has sovereign rights and they're not disputing that area. But ang ginagawa namin ngayon, we are continuing to coordinate with the various agencies to see what additional action we can take. But we have already brought this to the attention of China.
Anong klaseng mga barko ba to? Were they military vessels?
I know. I don't think they were military vessels. They were just vessels. Most likely, they may have been a research vessel. But yun nga, we are further clarifying all of that.
At merong bang pahintulot ang China para makapasok dito sa ating exclusive economic zone?
In what sense? You mean yung...
Did they have permission to conduct any activities there?
Well, they never sought permission, so naturally we can't give. Of course, there is this so-called right of innocent passage. Pwede dumaan dun yung mga ships, even within the EEZ of any country. But of course, if any research, etc., kailangan mo ng permission of the country in whose area that area is, which if it lies in the EEZ of that particular country or continental shelf.
Gusto ko lang po i-clarify yun dahil si Pangulong Duterte parang may pahiwatig siya o may pahayag nga siya na may pahintulot or they consulted at least with him, no? Or our government about entering our waters.
No, ang sinabi niya is just to in fact inform China that we saw this and to let them know. Saka we have sought the clarification of why they were there.
But China never told him or our government that they were going to do this.
I'm not aware of that.
And then si Defense Secretary Lorenzana mentioned that these Chinese boats were not just passing through. Kumbaga, sinabi niya, nagki-criss-cross daw, nananatili daw sila. So it wasn't just an exercise of their freedom of navigation, but they were actually conducting some kind of, up to now, mysterious activities on our continental shelf in Benham Rice.
Well, yun nga ang kina-clarify namin. But just to say that China has already informed us that they do recognize our sovereign rights over the area and they're not disputing Benham Rice.
Pero ang implication nun ay kung if they're recognizing our sovereign rights, they need to ask for our permission before they do anything aside from just passing through.
That would be expected, yeah.
May nagsasabi na parang isa itong hudyat na lumalakas ang loob ng China, no? Kasi nga, dati nga, doon lang sila sa western side ng ating bansa, no, na namamalagi. Ngayon, nasa eastern side na. Ano kayang ibig sabihin nito na ngayon nandun na yung mga barko nila sa eastern side ng ating bansa?
Well, yung sinabi ko about there is the right of innocent passage. So there are actually marami naman dumadaan doon. What we have to see is whether kung talagang consistent to. If they keep on coming back, then of course we will have to find out. But this particular incident is what you're referring to is what the Secretary has referred to is what we had sought clarification from China on. But naturally, we will have to keep on monitoring this area para tingnan if there'll be further movements of vessels. But maraming dumadaan talaga sa area na yan. So it's really, we have to be vigilant if we see them coming back like that. But we're at least the initial reply of China is clear. They're not disputing that area.
Alam ko na when it comes to information about what China does in this part of the world, no, maraming impormasyon na nanggagaling din sa Amerika, no? Especially since we've had this long alliance with them. Anong maasahan natin sa Amerika naman ngayon pagdating sa mga ganitong klaseng issue, concern dito sa karagatan?
Well, as you know, we have a close historic relationship with the United States. We are treaty allies. We have strong security relationship. We have economic relationship. And we have worked closely with the U.S. on many issues. And I suppose that they will continue in the future. So, we will be operating on that basis.
But how would you interpret some of President Duterte's pronouncements in the last months? Na he intends for our country to turn away from our alliance with the United States and become closer to China. He said this in different ways on several occasions. He's used the word separation economically, militarily. Of course, other officials of the government have had to kind of interpret this or clarify this. Pero para sa inyo, no, now that you're in charge of the Department of Foreign Affairs, how would you interpret these kinds of statements in terms of our change in foreign policy, if there will be a change, and then how much progress has the government made in making this transition from our closeness to America to a new or intended closeness with China?
Well, I think we should interpret it, and I think it's quite clear. This is the independent foreign policy which the president wishes to pursue. Now, that policy doesn't mean moving away from one country and then moving towards another, or moving away from a group of countries and towards another. It merely means engaging all our partners on the basis of mutual benefit and the national interest.
Okay, well, in the United States itself, no, may mga pagbabago din. May bago silang administrasyon doon. Does U.S. President Donald Trump worry you? Is he causing people in the Department of Foreign Affairs some anxiety, or is he raising uncertainties that you're still trying to figure out?
I wouldn't say he's worrying us. What we are is we are very open to continuing our strong relationship with the United States. In fact, our approach has been to try and develop contacts with the new administration so we can pursue yung various activities natin with the United States. So it's really a case now of reaching out and seeing how we can further develop our relation with the United States with the new administration. So that's yun ang approach namin. In fact, that's the approach of the ASEAN countries too. So our idea is to build already on our relationship with the U.S. Even more than what we have now. So that's the approach we're taking with the United States.
Okay, there's been stronger appeals and invitations to China and to Chinese business to invest in the Philippines. Kayo ba, bilang isang diplomat who's kind of trying to safeguard our interest, nagwo-warn ba kayo na maaring may strings attached dito? Are you kind of examining some of these investments to make sure na wala naman kapalit na hindi makakabuti sa atin?
Well, first of all, we are an open market, and I think one of our goals is to promote development of the Philippines. So, best ways to do it, one of the best ways is to increase trade, investment, and of course, China is a big market. So naturally, we welcome increased economic relations. But at the same time, of course, as you know, for example, on investments, for example, infrastructure, many things we have. If there's investments, they have to comply with regulations, and they're done in an open, transparent way. So as long as they fulfill that, I think that's important. It would be an important contributor to our development. And syempre, in those laws, etc., are precisely there to make sure that we comply with what our Constitution requires, etc. And then implicitly, it will help in the national interest without affecting other aspects. And so that is our approach with China. And in fact, we're also trying to increase our trade and investment into China. So I think this is both a two-way. And of course, all countries naturally will have always seek to safeguard their interests whenever they do this. So that is always paramount in our concerns.
Do we still seek foreign aid?
Well, it depends. There are countries who do. And of course, we welcome it, and it's part of our policy. But I would say now we are also, as one of the emerging and strong markets of Asia, we're relying more and more on trade and development. But of course, there are existing aid programs, and certainly the Philippines, if a country wishes to provide assistance, of course, it has to comply with our laws. But it's certainly part of the mix. But I think more and more we're branching out on developing our trade and investment ties.
Kasi may mga nakakapansin, I don't know if it's really true on the ground, na yung sa mga nakaraang mga kalamidad, the recent disasters, no, parang mas konti daw yung mga offers of aid and humanitarian assistance galing sa ibang bansa.
Well, hindi naman depende. In fact, now itong recent earthquake from Surigao, there have been countries who have offered assistance.
Okay, I'm sure you and your colleagues are often asked about the human rights situation in the Philippines. I mean, yan ang nagda-dominate ng international news tungkol sa Pilipinas, no? Itong mga sinasabing extrajudicial killings, itong drug war na madugo, no, sa ating bansa, no? What is the best way of explaining that to foreigners?
Well, first of all, we don't condone EJKs. And in fact, what we say is the president is aimed at addressing a very important critical problem affecting the Philippines, and that's the drug problem. But on the bigger issue of human rights, we always try and point out, and many will attest to it, the Philippines has long been identified as a champion of human rights. In fact, when this Human Rights Council was first created, established 10 years ago, the Philippines was elected by the UN as one of the original members. And I think hindi mangyayari yun if they felt the Philippines was a human rights violator. In fact, it's recognition that the Philippines has been a major proponent of human rights of all kinds, whether it's human rights of children, women, lahat. We have signed almost all the major human rights conventions. And I think we have long been a champion, especially in ASEAN. The Philippines was the prime mover of the ASEAN Commission on Human Rights. So you might recall that we fought very hard for its creation. And we have been identified as one of the champions of human rights. And we will maintain that tradition. And if there are human rights abuses, the government immediately tries to address them. They have, in fact, if they find erring officials committing human rights abuses, it's in our laws. So the government tries its best to promote human rights domestically and internationally. Our image as a human rights champion is I think, still there.
But we haven't lost any of our credibility when it comes to human rights, in your view?
In my view, we have. Of course, there have been some, but this is normal. I mean, even before, there have been some who criticized us before on human rights. So, but every country gets criticized for some kind of human rights violation. So, but the important thing is, you maintain the state policy of supporting human rights.
Okay, in the upcoming ASEAN summit and there have been a lot of meetings already. Gaano kataas doon sa ating agenda of priorities yung terorismo at yung ISIS, infiltration ng ISIS sa ating sa mga bansa ng Southeast Asia?
Mataas ang issue of terrorism among all the ASEAN countries. So that's one of the areas na i-address ng ASEAN. Yan. In fact, we have some counter-terrorism arrangements with our ASEAN neighbors.
Ano pa yung mga pinaka-importanting issue na tatalakayin?
As economic, it's how to enlarge the ASEAN economic community, and then also the RCEP, which is between free trade arrangements between ASEAN and our 6 other countries, whom we have existing FTAs. Then on the social, we have migration, of course, an important issue, and of course on the political, regional stability, transnational crime, drugs. So it's medyo malaki yung agenda.
Okay, well, speaking of ASEAN unity, there hasn't been much unity on South China Sea. May mga disagreements tungkol dyan. In fact, there's disagreement about whether it should even be discussed, no? So, i-discuss ba yan
well, I'm sure the
sa darating na mga...
it will be discussed. Not only discussed. We are working on a code of conduct on the South China Sea with China. And that will be really one of the top priorities for us this year. And the first step is to see whether we can develop a framework for the code of conduct. And yun, nag-umpisa ng trabaho doon. And the ASEAN countries and China are working very hard on that. And we hope maybe hopefully this year we'll have made significant progress on a framework. And then from there, hopefully a code. But after the framework. But so definitely, South China Sea will be discussed in that sense.
And then ano yung pinaka-contentious point doon?
At the moment, I'd say the issues is ano yung mga ilalagay natin sa code. And they have some general topics. But I just say that right now, wala pang mga specific elements. But the key of the code is to ensure na it recognizes that there are disputes in South China Sea. So the main purpose of the code is habang sinasettle pa yung mga disputes, we have to have measures in place to prevent, let's say, unexpected or accidental conflict or incidents which could lead to conflict.
Dito sa mga discussions nyo tungkol sa Code of Conduct, yun nga, sabi nyo nga, may negotiation pa. No? Ginagamit ba natin yung desisyon ng International Tribunal na pabor sa atin dito sa mga diskusyon na to? Do we bring it up as a way of gaining leverage or as a bargaining chip or a way to negotiate?
Well, as I said, what the Philippines will be pushing for, and I'm sure many of the other ASEAN, is for the code to reflect measures that are, one, promotes peace and cooperation. And naturally, one way is to have measures which are consistent with UNCLOS. Also, the rule of law. And that if there are any disputes, we should settle them on the basis of international law. So I would say those are the type of measures we want in. I don't think I can really go into the specific measures kasi pag-usapan pa yun. But definitely the Philippines will be coming from that perspective.
Okay, meron ba kayong inaasahan na dadalong mga major world leaders katulad ni President Trump or si Vladimir Putin of Russia?
Well, inaasahan namin silang lahat, especially during the EAS Summit. Imbitahin namin lahat ng mga leaders of the EAS Summit. So it's our hope that they will attend. That will be in November this year.
Is groundwork being prepared for a Duterte-Trump meeting?
Well, it's being looked into.
Yung Department of Foreign Affairs, minsan may political appointee na namumuno, minsan may career, ngayon may career na namumuno, but you're in an acting capacity. May mga sabi-sabi na si Senator Cayetano, Alan Peter Cayetano, yung eventually na magte-take over. Pero sinabi ni Pangulong Duterte recently na mas mabuti kung nasa Senado na lang si Senator Cayetano. No? But bilang isang acting Foreign Affairs Secretary, how much leeway do you have to make policy, or do you have a sense that you're just warming the seat of a political appointee?
Well, I'm as acting secretary. Well, of course, decision ng president yun. And we will do our best as long as we're here, and it's up to the president to decide kung anong gusto niya. We're at following his instructions, and we will rely on whatever he says. But in the meantime, we're committed to do our work here, and we will ensure that the Department of Foreign Affairs operates to the best of its ability to fulfill its functions.
Okay, you are a long-time career diplomat, but you're also the son of career diplomats. What do you think is the greatest area of improvement in the Department of Foreign Affairs?
Let's say in terms of promoting, being up to date on the latest developments, and also trying to improve the way we work by removing red tapes.
We know you're a very busy man, kaya nagpapasalamat po kami sa inyo sa inyong panahon.
Salamat din.
Acting Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo. Thank you very much,
Great pleasure,
sir.
great pleasure. Okay, thank you.